What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And today, we're doing the 35th anniversary of Tango and Cash. Yep. Sylvester Stallone, Kurt Russell movie from 1989 that was part of the buddy cop trend that really just sort of defined the 80s. It did bleed into the 90s a little bit. We did still have buddy cop movies. Actually, arguably, we still do. But man, it really felt like the 80s were the peak. Um, with we had films like obviously Lethal Weapon is sort of like the pinnacle of this this genre. But I mean, even Beverly Hills Cop is doing it. It's just doing it in sort of like a more comedic way. Um, Trying to think of some others. There's one that I know that they made a sequel to that its whole name is escaping me right now, like the name of the franchise, but I know there's a one and two to one of them. Anyway, but there were enough buddy cop movies in the 80s that it was bound to happen for Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell, two men who had both starred in action movies. And these films work because you take two people who are opposites and you throw them together and, go. Um, and Sylvester Stallone plays a little bit more like clean cut, well dressed cop, and Kurt Russell's like the slobbier cop. That's their contrasting nature. It's less obvious here, which is one of the reasons why I think Tango and Cash doesn't have like four sequels like Lethal Weapon does, where Danny Glover and Mel Gibson really do feel like they truly do contrast each other for the Lethal Weapon franchise. These guys really do feel like they complement each other more so, but the script is like trying to write them in ways that they feel like they're an odd couple. And I think this is definitely a nostalgic hit for people of the 80s. Not so much for me. It's actually my first time watching it. So I don't have love for Tango and Cash the same way. I've seen every Lethal Weapon movie, though. Um, and some of the others, the one that I'm trying to think of that I literally cannot think of, maybe by the end of the movie, end of the review I will. But this has Stallone plays Tango, Russell plays Cash. They are two really successful cops with a long record of busting the criminals, and we see them sort of introduced separately, and then they end up together, but they end up catching the eye of this criminal mastermind who basically gets them in a position where they look like dirty cops, so they get sent to jail, and then the whole movie becomes about them having to break out of jail and clear their names, make sure to capture the actual villain, survive trying to not be killed, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, you have clashing personalities, ass kicking, uh, criminal mastermind, drugs. Everybody had drugs. Everybody was battling some sort of drug lord in, in the 80s. Um, and you have two 80s action stars. Um, and some levity to it too, by the way. There's some stuff here that there's a direct reference, a joke made at Stallone's expense, where they make a joke to him like, if you look, this guy thinks he's Rambo, and Stallone has to respond with, Rambo's a pussy. you know Something like that. So it's meta before we knew what meta was. you know to throw Stallone that line. And it's an easier line because Rambo was used a little bit more colloquially than to do that to Kurt Russell and be like, this guy thinks he's Snake Plissken. Like, I, I don't know. Actually, I think I'm the computer that wore tennis shoes. I don't know. But yeah, it's just it's fun. Like I watched this for the first time. It's a little over 90 minutes, and it makes you long for the days when we used to just make really easy, fun movies that were not really long, like that were not unnecessarily long. Like, I didn't hate The Fall Guy, but does it need to be that runtime? And then on top of that, he has an extended cut of that movie that's even longer. So The Fall Guy feels like the kind of movie that could have benefited from looking at something like Tango and Cash and being like, man, this movie comes in a little over 90 minutes, and it has fans still today for a reason. So 35 years from now, will The Fall Guy have fans? That's a question. And right now, it's not anybody, I don't think it's anybody's favorite movie of the year. It'll be recognized for like stunt work. Um, but other than that, I don't know that it's going to really register in the same way. Tango and Cash seems to have held up for fans of 80s buddy action cop movies. And that's the question I always ask myself when I watch a film like this is, does it hold up? Has it stood the test of time? And I've seen enough people talking about Tango and Cash over the years. It's not quite to the level of Lethal Weapon. So this is one of those things where, like, along the way, Tango and Cash will fall off. At 35 years, there are enough people alive who remember it that it hasn't. There are enough people who watched this with their dads, who watched this on cable, who saw this in theaters. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are enough people. Both of the lead actors are still alive. Um, there's enough here that people remember this movie fondly, even if they don't think it's like the greatest movie ever. A lot of these action movies are just there for fun, and Tango and Cash still is holding up 35 years later, which is pretty damn good because there are a lot of films that don't hold up 35 years. There are a bunch of films that don't even hold up 5, 10 years later, that you forget even existed. The next year you saw them, you're like, what was that movie? So, um, I think Tango and Cash still has fans, and there's still a reason to watch it and talk about it. Is it the best film of either of these people's career? No. Would I think it'd be hilarious if they did a legacy sequel to this? Yes. That is what I want from this movie. I think it would be the most random thing if, because Netflix had such a huge success this year with Beverly Hills Cop Axel F, if they tried to do that with Tango and Cash. Because I can't imagine the rights to this franchise are, Kurt Russell's already doing, he's already done some Netflix original films like The Christmas Chronicles. So he'd be down for this. Stallone is doing Tulsa King. I mean, these guys are not going to turn down a Tango and Cash reteam. I think it'd be funny to see them like come back together as really old and like, what kind of movie are you trying to put together here? So, will they come back together for one last ride? Tango and Cash ride again, coming soon. Why not? We're doing legacy sequels to everything else. Why can't, So, who knows? And if you have somebody who has like a Top Gun Maverick spin on it, this where it ends up being for some reason dramatically better than the first one, then yeah, go for it. But yeah, it has a completely different tone. It's like really serious. Feels like Michael Mann's Miami Vice or something like that. Yeah, okay. Um, but this was fun. The audio description was fine considering I'd never seen the movie before. I thought the action sequences. I have questions about the Kurt Russell dressing up as a woman sequence. Uh, just in terms of reference, just why. But other than that, you know, it was okay. So, not my favorite buddy action movie, but perfectly watchable. For those people who watch it over and over, I just think it's a nostalgia thing, and I get that. And my grade just doesn't reflect that. My grade reflects somebody who just saw it 35 years later, not a nostalgia thing. I have much more nostalgia for the Lethal Weapon franchise, so my grade for that would be higher. But for this, I thought it was fine. I'm gonna give Tango and Cash a B. I don't think it's the I don't think it's the pinnacle of buddy cop, but it definitely is a film that has come out of it that is cheesy, is everything it's supposed to be for its time period, for its the story, and it's just fun, you know, and it's quick. It's like an hour and a half. So, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the other side.